The wilderness stretched before them like an endless sea of violet grass, swaying in rippling waves beneath the light of Aurelia's twin suns. Kellen stood tall, his armor dented and scorched from the previous night's battle. The plasma cutter clipped to his hip, still humming faintly with residual energy. Beside him walked Lysara, her silver hair glowing faintly even in daylight, cascading down her back like liquid starlight, her eyes shimmering like polished crystal under the open sky. Her beauty struck Kellen anew every time he looked at her, not only because of her alien grace, but because of the strength etched into every step she took. Though she had the build of a warrior, broad shoulders, lithe muscles, and an elegance of movement honed by her people's traditions, her heart still burned with compassion, which gave Kellen the will to press onward. Behind them, the capital city lay smoldering in ruin, its gleaming towers reduced to blackened husks. The cries of the damned carried faintly on the wind. Zombies roamed those ruins now, some staggering aimlessly with broken limbs, others pausing in eerie stillness until a scent or sound spurred them into terrible bursts of speed. Their flesh hung in strips, glowing faintly with the same sickly green hue that seeped from their eyes, ichor dripping like tar with every step. Some dragged weapons stolen from corpses, though clumsily, their intelligence stripped away, while others simply clawed with nails sharpened by decay. Kellen had seen war before, but never creatures that blurred the line between living, dead, and nightmare with such relentless hunger. The farther they walked, the quieter it grew, until only the whisper of grass, the flutter of alien insects filled the air. Lysara tilted her head, her sharp senses scanning the horizon, and murmured, "The wilderness resists them. The land is not theirs to claim." At first, Kellen didn't understand, but soon he noticed it two patches of plants that seemed to stir at the presence of wandering undead. A cluster of thorned vines uncoiled from the soil to lash at a zombie that wandered too close, piercing its flesh and pulling it down into the earth with startling speed. Elsewhere, massive flowers snapped shut around corpses, digesting the remains with a low hiss, leaving behind only bones polished white by alien enzymes. Even the wildlife fought back against the encroaching horror. Kellen and Lysara paused when a pack of six-legged predators emerged from the tall grass, sleek creatures with crystal-tipped horns glowing faintly blue. The beasts circled a lone zombie, staggering across the plain, then lunged in perfect unison, tearing it apart with savage efficiency before melting back into the grass. Lysara placed her hand on Kellen's arm and whispered, "The planet itself is awakening. Aurelia will not go quietly into death." He nodded, unsettled but strangely reassured, because it meant they were not entirely alone in this struggle. The pair traveled carefully, skirting groves of glowing trees whose roots shimmered with pale light and fields of flowers that pulsed as if breathing. At night, they built small fires when possible, Kellen always standing watch, while Lysara slept with her blade clutched near her chest. Yet even in exhaustion, her beauty never dimmed, her hair shimmering like moonlight against the dark soil, her eyes catching every spark from the fire and turning them into gems. Kellen would watch her, feeling the weight of the apocalypse pressing in, and remind himself that everything he fought for now rested in her survival. She was his anchor, his reason, and in turn, she told him that his courage was the only light she needed in the darkness. One night, they awoke to the distant howling of the infected, carried across the plain like a storm building on the horizon. The moans were long and drawn out, chilling in their slowness, but they grew sharper when carried by shrieks that signaled prey had been found. Kellen and Lysara crouched low in a copse of trees, watching dozens of figures stumble across the grass in eerie disarray, only to suddenly sprint after a herd of grazing animals. The creatures scattered, but not all escaped, and the sound of tearing flesh filled the air before the herd vanished into the night. Kellen gritted his teeth, whispering, "They're evolving, hunting like predators, instead of wandering like beasts." Lysara touched his cheek, her expression pained yet resolute. "Then we must be stronger," she said softly, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before them. He kissed her forehead briefly, savoring the warmth of her touch before they moved again. Days passed, each one blurring into the next as they made their way toward the faint outlines of distant mountains. Kellen rationed their food and water carefully, though Lysara helped them forage for edible plants that glowed with faint light, their taste sharp but nourishing. One morning, they discovered a grove where the infected had been slaughtered not by survivors, but by the land itself. Vines stretched high into the trees, holding rotting corpses suspended like grotesque fruit, ichor dripping to feed the roots below. Giant insects scuttled along the bodies, tearing away chunks of infected flesh with methodical efficiency, as if cleansing the world. Kellen shuddered at the sight, but Lysara whispered reverently, "Aurelia protects her children." It reminded him that this planet, while scarred, was alive, and its survival instincts were as fierce as their own. As they continued onward, Kellen's thoughts often drifted to their marriage, to the vows they had spoken under the glowing arches of Aurelia's crystal temple. He remembered the way her hair had shimmered like living silver when she pledged herself to him, the way her eyes had sparkled brighter than the stars above. Now, those same features guided him through horror, reminding him that love was more powerful than fear. Lysara, too, would often look at Kellen with quiet admiration, his determination and ingenuity a beacon amid despair. Together, they became more than survivors. They became defiance itself. After nearly 2 weeks of travel, they spotted movement ahead, not of zombies, but of living, organized beings. Smoke curled from a cluster of structures perched at the base of the hills, walls of timber and stone rising high against the plain. The faint sound of voices carried on the wind, guarded but unmistakably alive, stirring hope within their weary hearts. As they drew closer, they saw torches burning along the perimeter, sentries stationed atop the walls with crude but functional crossbows. The village, though small, was fortified, a desperate stand carved into the wilderness to hold back the tide of infection. Kellen tightened his grip on Lysara's hand as they approached the gates, his voice low but determined. "This could be salvation, or another kind of danger," he said, scanning the walls for signs of hostility. Lysara's eyes sparkled as she looked at him, her expression calm despite the tension. "Where there is life, there is a chance," she replied softly. And with that, they stepped forward together, two survivors bound by love, hope, and the will to endure whatever awaited within the village walls.